No name, no goodbye, no tears, just a baby wrapped in a towel, with a purplish blue mark stretched across her tiny face and a fate no one wanted to claim. Her name would one day be Aria. But on that morning in the quiet town of Wilbur Grove, Georgia, she was no one. To everyone, she was just a baby with a strange mark, left at the door of a crumbling orphanage like unwanted mail. The woman who handed her over her mother didn't cry. The man beside her didn't speak. He rang the bell, and when the door opened, they both walked away. Behind them, the iron gate creaked shut, soft, almost gentle. But it sounded like a sentence, a verdict, a choice. The baby didn't make a sound, didn't flinch. She opened her eyes and stared at a world that had already decided she didn't belong. That mark. It stretched from her brow to her cheekbone, a bold stroke of deep violet, like spilled ink on porcelain skin. In cities, it might have been called unique. In this town, it was feared. They called it a curse. They said it was a sign. And signs in places like Wilbur Grove meant one thing. Something's wrong. Aria's mother, Megan, had dreamed of a daughter. She had picked out dresses, named stories to read at bedtime. But the moment she saw the mark, something in her collapsed. She looked away. Her husband Jack left the room and didn't return that night. A grandmother whispered, "That child carries something heavy." Neighbors brought old remedies, murmured superstitions. One suggested covering the mark with red clay. Another warned no man would ever love a girl like that. Even the pastor refused to touch her forehead when blessing the newborns. No one wanted to speak it aloud, but the message was clear. This baby is a burden. A few weeks later, they drove her to the city. They told the neighbors they were taking her to a clinic. But the building they stopped at was no clinic. It was a long-forgotten institution with flaking white paint, a crooked sign hanging loosely above the gate, Silverwood Home for Children. The woman at the door didn't ask questions. She had seen this before. "No paper," she asked. No, Jack mumbled. "We can't keep her." The woman looked down at the baby. Her tone softened. "She's beautiful." But Megan only trembled. She kissed the baby once right above the birthmark, then turned and walked away without looking back. And just like that, Aria's life began, not in a nursery, not in a home, but in a building full of forgotten names. She didn't cry. She just opened her eyes, silent, still, as if she already understood this world had no space for her. But somewhere, far from that orphanage, a man was waking up that same morning, not to joy, not to hope, but to the same ache he'd felt for a year. A man who had once rocked a granddaughter to sleep. A man who had lost her in a car crash on a rainy Friday. A man who couldn't forget her name, Aria. And one day, he would walk through the gates of Silverwood Home. He would see the girl with the birthmark, and instead of turning away, he would choose to stay. Aria grew up in the quietest corner of Silverwood Home, in a back room with peeling paint, a drafty window, and a crib that used to belong to someone else long forgotten. The staff rotated so often that no one remembered who first held her. But everyone remembered her face. That mark. Some called her the Painted Girl. Others avoided her entirely. Not because she did anything wrong, but because something about her made them uneasy, like she had arrived carrying an ancient secret no one dared name. She didn't cry much, didn't compete for attention. She learned early. The more silent you are, the less people ask questions. While the other children begged for hugs, Aria found comfort in corners, in books, with torn pages, in broken toys with missing limbs, in watching light shift across the wooden floorboards. She learned how to read, not from a teacher, but from the labels on food donations. She memorized patterns in how people walked, how their voices dipped when they lied, how their hands trembled when they cared. She didn't wait to be chosen. She already knew she wasn't the one anyone picked. Then came the day the air shifted. The orphanage door opened not for a wealthy couple looking to adopt, not for a caseworker or politician with cameras in tow, but for an old man with silver hair, an overcoat far too warm for spring, and a box of books so heavy it bent his spine. Nathaniel Cade. He wasn't looking for anything. He said he was just delivering donations books, Blanket's kindness. But when he looked up and saw Aria sitting on the stairs, small, still unreadable, something inside him shattered. Not because she reminded him of someone, but because she wasn't trying to remind anyone of anything. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was just there watching him, and not flinching. That was the moment. He didn't speak right away. He didn't have to. A few days later, the papers were signed. No press release, no interviews. Nathaniel simply walked out of Silverwood holding Aria's hand as if it had always been meant to fit into his. His estate in Vermont was massive. Sunlight poured through wide windows, hallways echoed with past generations. Portraits of stiff ancestors lined the walls. But he didn't ask Aria to fit into any of it. He didn't dress her up for photos. He didn't hide the birthmark. Instead, he gave her a library card, a telescope, a second-hand upright piano, and most of all, quiet. Not the cold kind she had grown up with, but the kind that lets something bloom. At 12, Aria built a math app to help children with learning difficulties. Not because someone told her to, because she had once needed it herself. At 15, she earned a scholarship to a prestigious academy, the kind of place where no one had a face like hers, but everyone eventually listened when she spoke. At 18, she stood under stage lights at a TEDx event, wearing a simple dress and no makeup to hide the mark. She didn't speak about the orphanage, didn't mention the gate, didn't name her pain. She just said, there are children who are never picked, and when they grow up, they often become the ones who make room for others. The room went silent, then rose to its feet. And in the front row, Nathaniel Cade, the man who had once buried a granddaughter, sat with trembling hands and tears streaming down his weathered cheeks, whispering, "That's my girl." But Aria wasn't finished. She launched the Haven Initiative, a foundation for children with visible differences, birthmarks, scars, deformities, burns. She didn't want to fix them. She wanted the world to see them, to really see them. She said, if you can see someone's wounds, then you should be able to see their worth. The initiative grew fast. And then one morning an email arrived from someone named Linda Reese. The message was short. I think I know who you are. I'm your aunt. We told your mother to leave you. We were wrong. So very wrong. Aria didn't reply right away. She returned to Silverwood, now partnered with her foundation, and asked to see her old file. Inside it was a folded note from 2 decades earlier. Scrawled in hasty ink, no known relatives, unnamed, facial birthmark. She stared at it for a long time. Then with calm hands and a full heart, she wrote a reply. You didn't curse me. You freed me. By the time Aria turned 24, Nathaniel Cade had grown quieter. The man who once filled rooms with music and long-winded stories now spoke in whispers, if at all. The sunlight in the estate still streamed through the tall windows, but his presence felt like it was slipping through the cracks, a slow fading of the man who once saved her by simply choosing to see her. He spent more time in bed now, and Aria spent more time by his side. She read him letters from children around the world, kids with cleft lips, burned scars, or birthmarks like hers. Kids who once felt invisible, now writing to say, I feel seen. She brought him photos from shelters funded by the Haven Initiative classrooms built in forgotten towns, dorms filled with books and blankets, hope laid out brick by brick in places where hope was once extinct. And then one night, as snow fell gently outside, Aria sat beside his bed and took his hand. His eyes opened slowly, clouded, but alive. She asked barely above a whisper, Did I do okay? Nathaniel smiled, not with grandeur, not with flourish, but with truth. "No," he rasped. "You didn't do okay. You did the impossible. You turned pain into purpose. You made me proud. I lived long enough to see it." 2 days later, he passed, peacefully, without fanfare, wrapped in the same quiet grace that had defined his love for her. At the funeral, Arya didn't wear black. She wore white. A dress as simple as the one she wore at her TED Talk, her hair free, her birthmark uncovered, unapologetic, unhidden, unmistakably hers. She didn't speak about death. She spoke about transformation, about the power of being chosen, not out of obligation, but out of belief. Nathaniel Cade didn't fix me. He didn't erase where I came from. He didn't pretend my scars weren't there. He simply saw me, and he didn't look away. Today, in front of the newly rebuilt Silverwood home, there stands a statue carved in marble. A little girl swaddled in cloth, looking up eyes wide, alert and calm. Across her cheek is a faint sculpted curve, a mark that once brought fear, now etched in stone as something sacred. Beneath her feet are 5 simple words: she was born rare, Arya Cade. People no longer ask about the mark. They ask how she became who she is, how a child left behind became the founder of a movement, how a girl once silenced became a voice for thousands. And the answer always is simple, because someone saw her before anyone else dared to. Sometimes all it takes to rewrite a destiny is one person who refuses to look away.